I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us today. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We can't do this without you. The phone number, if you would like to call or text us this morning, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Interesting stuff. We're going to get to some of this at 7:05. Governor Asa Hutchinson says that this last session, the 92nd session, was the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time, and the Democrats said yes. Matter of fact, they actually do in the article. We'll tell you about that closer to the top of the next hour. Then at the bottom of this hour, I had the privilege of sitting down and interview a guy by the name of Steve Ronnebeck. He is an angel dad. I mean, he lost his son in a convenience store robbery after his son complied with everything the illegal immigrant was telling him to do, and then was shot point blank in the face. It's the We Build the Wall campaign. They've raised something like already $22 million. It was started by the most wounded combat veteran, or wounded combat airman, I think, in American history, Brian Colfage. Anyway, but he's affiliated with that group, and they're just trying to get more people like yourself, citizens, to donate to the wall. They're trying to raise, I think, $1 billion to build the wall. And I asked him. We'll hear from him again at 6:30. I asked him, how do you go about doing that? How does a private group of citizens go about doing something like this when it's the federal government's responsibility or the state's responsibility? And he says, well, we just get the people who have the land, the private landowners. If they agree, then we can go build the wall on their property. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's one way to do it. So we'll be doing that. Then at 7:33, we'll be talking with Chad Neal. He'll be on the program in studio. He is suing Republican Senator John Cooper, and want to know what that's all about. That made the paper, made a few headlines, I think, last weekend. And so we want to talk to him about that. So all that and much, much more. Let me tell you what I'm excited about today. You ready for this? William Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, is going to hold a press conference today at, the time they gave was 9:30. I'm assuming that's an Eastern time, so that would be 8:30. Anyway, at some point this morning, William Barr is going to hold a press conference ahead of him releasing the Mueller report, the redacted version. Now, the Washington Post this morning is reporting. Let's go to the Washington Post. They are reporting that, not that you can trust it, but they're reporting that the report is not going to be as heavily redacted as some may have thought initially. Their headline here, Mueller report will be lightly redacted, revealing detailed look at obstruction of justice investigation. Okay. So yesterday, and if you actually scroll down here, we've got to read some of this because this is what's fascinating to me. Thursday's rollout plan and news of the White House's advanced briefing, which was first reported by ABC News and the New York Times, sparked a political firestorm Wednesday, with Democrats suggesting the Attorney General was trying to improperly color Mueller's findings before the public could read them. Well, you can make that. I mean, that's what the whole. That's what this is the same thing they've been saying for weeks. he wrote the summary letter. You're trying to improperly color the investigation. So they've got the same phony arguments. They're just trying to try them out again today, and you'll see this all throughout. Listen, the fact of the matter is this. You shouldn't believe a word that CNN, ABC, NBC, whatever they say after this report is released. You shouldn't believe a word of it, of their analysis of it. I mean, these guys have been basically telling you for 18 months that Donald Trump is a KGB agent that's secretly loyal to the government of Saudi Arabia. By the way, that's back in the news. It's ridiculous that they have no credibility on this issue at all. And that just goes to show you, I mean, we're about to find out, and in the 2020 elections, we're going to find out the level of irrelevancy of the media. I mean, maybe they're not irrelevant, and maybe they're not as irrelevant as we think, right? You can make the argument that they're pushing Russian collusion is what got these moderate Republican districts to swing to the Democrats to give the Democrats the House of Representatives. I mean, you could definitely make that argument. There are polls out there now that say, though, that they believe that the media has not done a good enough job informing them about the spying campaign that that Obama undertook against the Trump campaign. And you got to know that that poll is not going to be received very well by the media. But you don't need to listen to a word these people say after this report is released because you can't trust them, right? The only way that you can make your mind up for yourself is to go read the Mueller report for yourself. And good news, you'll be able to do that because of the internet. But don't go running to CNN or ABC or MSNBC or any of these people because, I mean, they've essentially lied to you this entire time, right? So we have, let's see, there's Jerry Nadler, otherwise known as Jerry the Hutt. While the report's light redactions, this is what I want to get to. Washington Post saying that the report's light redactions might allay or ally some of their concerns. Democrats are likely to bristle at any material that is withheld. So now we're hearing that it's not going to be nearly as redacted as we thought. Mueller did not find a conspiracy, Washington Post. Mueller did not find a conspiracy between Russians and Trump or his campaign, according to William Barr in his letter. And we keep going. But see, yesterday, if you go over to the AP, let's give up on this article and let's go to the Associated Press. Mueller report release spirals into political gamesmanship. So yesterday, after nearly 2 years, they write, of waiting, America will get some answers. But even the planned release, scrolling down here to the second or third paragraph, even the planned release of the nearly 400-page report quickly spiraled into a political battle Wednesday over whether Attorney General William Barr is attempting to shield the president who appointed him and spin the report's findings before the American people can read it and come to their own judgments. A press conference at 9:30 a.m., to present his interpretation of the report's findings before providing redacted copies of Congress. So they are now upset. They're really upset at the letter, the summary letter, that exposed the media for, being liars. And now they're upset that William Barr is going to have a press conference before he releases the redacted report to Congress. And this is driving them crazy. This is driving them nuts. But you know who's going to be at that press conference? Do you know? Who's going to be standing right there next to him? Now, not Mueller. Mueller will not be there. Rod Rosenstein. That's right, Rod Rosenstein. Do you remember Rod Rosenstein? The president better not fire Rod Rosenstein. If the president fires Rod Rosenstein, that'll be crossing the line. Do you remember all this? Mainly Chuck Schumer. He was the leader here. I've got a few headlines. Let's go back to 2018, thehill.com. Here is from April, basically a year ago, April 10th of last year. Schumer to Trump, don't even think about firing Mueller. Okay, he was so sticking up for Mueller as much as he possibly can. Going over now to White House Watch, September 21st of 2018, firing Rosenstein would cross a red line drawn by Democrats and resistance groups defending the rule of law. I've never been to this WhiteHouseWatch.com, but it cites a New York Times article based on second and third hand reports. Oh, You got to love those New York. Based on second and third hand reports from anonymous sources about comments Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein made in spring of 2017 is being widely and legitimately perceived as someone's attempt to pave the way for Trump to fire. Now, do you remember this? This was the report where Rosenstein, I just think they were trying to set Trump up this entire time so that they could actually get him on obstruction of justice. You know what I mean? Like this whole thing. If there was really never any Russia collusion, which we knew from the beginning that there wasn't, if that was the case, then what do? Well, you try to put Trump in a position to where he does fire Mueller, or you try to put Trump in a position to where he does fire Rod Rosenstein, because he was being attacked on all sides. They were trying to annoy this presidency to death and just get Trump to do something out of annoyance, and then they can be like, ha-ha, you are obstructing justice. That was the plan all along, I think, if, in fact, there was no real Russian collusion except with Hillary Clinton, the DNC, Christopher Steele, and everything else. There was real collusion there, and that was projection and deflection. Let's project the very thing that we are guilty of and don't want to be caught in on our opponent, Donald Trump, and let's hope he makes a mistake, meaning you may beat the charge, right, but you're not going to beat the ride, and the ride would have turned into obstruction. They were trying to get him to blink and do something that they could then charge him with. At least this is one theory I have heard out there. It's not my own. New York Times article, they want that, so it all comes out. The New York Times puts out that Rod Rosenstein was going to wear a wire to tape the president, was trying to, and then Andy McCabe trying to go out there and sway members of his cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment and question his mental capacity and get him removed that way. Rosenstein is overseeing Rob Mueller's special counsel investigation into possible collusion for Trump, who just last week tweeted about the illegal Mueller witch hunt. Now remember this, the president tweets things, the media piles on, they say it's not true, and then it winds up to be true most of the time. And what I mean is generally that's the case. People out there, you probably are going, no, that's not true. Do you remember when he said that the Obama, that they tapped his phones, right? That's true. Now, the substance is true. It wasn't I don't think it was an actual wire tap. But we know, this was before we knew about Papadopoulos and all of that stuff. By the way, George Papadopoulos is probably going to be a wealthy man someday. The Mueller firing rapid response network includes dozens of grassroots groups. So a number of contingencies in place. Should Trump fire Mueller, would also go into operation if he fires Rosenstein. Okay? You see what they're doing here? Don't you dare fire Mueller. Well, then he's not going to fire Mueller. He's going to well, don't you dare fire Rosenstein. They were trying to get Trump on anything they could. So they have a Mueller, this was back in 2018, a Mueller firing rapid response network. Includes dozens of grassroots groups like MoveOn.org, Common Cause, Public Citizen, the American Federation of Teachers, and the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. Right. Over 400,000 people have already signed up and promised to take to the streets. Okay? Obviously, so I just want to point out that Rod Rosenstein is going to be standing next to William Barr, according to reports, at this press conference today. I think that's something that needs to be said. That the one guy that they put all their faith in, right? Attorney General Josh Sessions, you have to recuse yourself. He recuses himself. Rod Rosenstein. Oh, he's one of us. He's part of the deep state. And he's going to make sure this investigation, he's going to, him and Bob Mueller, that Bob Mueller is one of us. Bob Mueller is going to make sure that we nullify this presidency, that we nullify the vote of 2016. He's going to get him. Folks, they had, the left was so ridiculous about this. They made, fake puns about how Miller Lite, it's Mueller time. As a matter of fact, that's what's on the Drudge Report right now. They were so messed up in the head, these liberals. You had people, I believe, the Stephen Colbert Late Show and everything else. They were, back during Christmas, they were singing, have yourself a Mueller little Christmas. I mean, it was sick. It was sick stuff. And they were just infatuated with getting rid of Trump, and they thought Mueller was going to be the one to do it. That's why this is such a huge blow to them. I think for a lot of people, though, there's some of those people in the middle that are probably waking up to the fact of just how control just how actively the media has been intentionally deceiving the people that have put their trust in them. There is a little bit of silver lining there. But anyway, Rod Rosenstein will be. Let's go back to the AP here real quick. Barr will hold a 9:30 a.m. news conference to present his interpretation of the report's findings before providing redacted copies to Congress. Immediately, yesterday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that because Barr is holding the press conference, that he's thrown out his credibility and the DOJ's independence with his single-minded effort to protect Trump. Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, said, you better never fire Rod Rosenstein, who will be standing right next to Barr. Schumer, this process is poisoned before the report is even released. What? What? How can you possibly say that? How can you possibly say that? This process is poisoned before the report's even released. This is your guy. He wrote the report. He didn't find any Russian collusion. Quote, Barr shouldn't be spinning the report at all, but it's doubly outrageous he's doing it before America is given a chance to read it. First of all, it's 400 pages. Now, I just told you to go read it for yourself, and you should if you're so inclined. But get this, right? Most people are not going to read a 400-page report, right? And we know what the media is going to do. So let's just game this out for a second. We know the media is going to lie about what this report says. Now, imagine the fact, what kind of world do we live in? I can say that to you with 100% certainty. We know the media is going to lie and intentionally deceive and distort about what this report says. They're going to pick and choose these little things. They're going to count that you're not going to read it, and they're going to craft headlines, and they're going to go on with this hoax. That's exact. And so, if we know that, and you know them, it'd be one thing if we knew the media was going to be honest about what the report said. There'd probably be no need for William Barr to have a press conference. But here's the thing. I want people to understand something. William Barr was the Attorney General with H.W. Bush. This guy is not some hyper-partisan Attorney General. He's just not. If you go look at his history, his background, he's very much a letter of the law guy, at least from what I've read about him. And so now they're basically wanting you to think that they've put somebody like I would say Barry Goldwater just because that triggers people on the left, but Barry Goldwater probably would have been a great Attorney General. But you get my point. They want you to think they've put this far right partisan guy, and that's not who William Barr is. And you can just tell it too. By the way, when he's addressing Congress, when he's analyzing data, you can just tell he's very, very cut and dry. I can't wait for this press conference. I can't wait to see Rod Rosenstein sitting right there. What do you think? Sound off on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Give me a telephone call or a text message, 870-275-9799. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you tired of having to fight the crowd?
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Joe is in the other room talking about a opinion relevancy scale in light of Greg Leding saying his opinion doesn't matter as much because he's a white male who holds public office. All right, hey folks, welcome back to the program. We're kind of in the home stretch here, folks. The group is ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and right now on the line we have the lead economist, Jonathan Williams, is with us. Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on with us this morning.
Well, thank you, and greetings from the land of make-believe here in Washington, D.C., as always.
Greetings. The land of make-believe, it certainly is. Jonathan, I want to have you on this website, richstatespoorstates.org. Tell us about it.
So
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, the Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government
better not tax our patience.
The more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patience will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So, one of the things I think the president has done, of course, this is hindsight, but the president, is the chief executive, so there are certain powers that he has. And so during this whole process of Mueller's investigating, I think the president and his attorneys were like, hey, we need to avoid a process crime. And you're the president, so you are able to just stay out of the process. I think that's and there's somebody on the Facebook just made that point. The president, in order to avoid a process crime charge like obstruction or something like that, stayed out of the process. If you're just joining us, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for listening. We have I'm anticipating. I think if the report is that the conference is at 9:30. That would mean William Barr press conference. William Barr, Rod Rosenstein, they're releasing the Mueller report, redacted version today. William Barr is holding a press conference, and the Democrats are angry. There's even some people on Twitter saying, should the media boycott William Barr's press conference? Should the media boycott William Barr's press conference this morning because the American people haven't had time? He's the Attorney General of the United States. He's letting the public know about a report their taxpayer dollars paid for. Everything is they hate President Trump more than I could imagine. I mean, I just, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, personally. Like, I had a problem with Barack Obama because his policies were socialist and Marxist, right? And there was some real vitriol there because people love their country in terms of the constitutional republic and free market economics, and we don't believe that we should be forced to throw all of our money into one big pot and have Barack Obama divided up equally. We don't believe in that, or at least so yeah, we had massive disagreements with Barack Obama, but it did not rise to this personal level of vitriol for President Trump.
Last 12 years, and this is the 12th edition of the report, I co-author it with Ronald Reagan's economic advisor, Arthur Laffer, and President Trump's recent selection to be on the Federal Reserve Board, Stephen Moore. So we put together this report to give lawmakers in the 50 state capitals and concerned citizens all across this nation a way to measure their states in terms of economic competitiveness. And taxes are a big thing that we measure in the report, so it's very appropriate. We're talking on tax week here, but also regulations, labor policies, things that we know matter for economic growth of state to state. And also, I think importantly to mention, is all the things that we measure in our report, contrary to some of the other ways that different groups rank states, our measures are directly controlled by state lawmakers in Little Rock and other state capitals across the country.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind. So, what are some of in your rankings? I'm sure you go through like a 1 through 50. And so what are some of the variables that get you, to number 1, for example?
Sure. So there's 15 different equally weighted measures. And the fun thing about going to richstatespoorstates.org is you can actually go see all of them for Arkansas and every state across the country. And you can also go back all 12 editions to see of the 15 factors where you've gained and where you've lost. But we look at things such as tax rates, tax burdens, both income tax, sales tax, property tax, all the ways that government, both state and local, will try to go after your hard-earned dollars as taxpayers. But then we also look at things like what has the state done recently? Has it raised taxes recently? Has it lowered taxes recently? We look at things like state debt. We look at some non-tax variables and non-budget variables even, and such as the size of the government workforce is really kind of a proxy for how big government is in a state and how many employees do they have on staff for state and local governments. And then we look at some things like minimum wage laws, right-to-work status of the state, and then things like does the state have something in law like Arkansas does, a supermajority requirement for tax increases or some way to stop the ever-increasing growth of government spending.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. So recently in Arkansas, they passed a tax. Well, they've raised our gas taxes. Okay, it's part of a $300+ million highway funding program. And we already have a gas tax, Jonathan, at the pump. And they didn't get the 3/4 requirement to raise it. So instead, they created a new wholesale tax.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, coming up at 7:05, I want to talk a little bit more about this headline in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. The governor of the great state of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, is saying that this last session, the 92nd General Assembly, was, quote, the greatest of all time. I mean, that is a Muhammad Ali statement right there. That's like... That is interesting. The greatest of all time. That would imply that there's some record that's been set here, and I'm curious as to what that record is. So we'll dive into this article, see what he has to say, see what the Democrats have to say. I tell you right now, we're certainly pushing for the highest number of indictments in an administration. Well, not like in the administration, but you know what I mean. Like over his tenure. We're pushing that record. Maybe even pushing some record tax increases as well. That's a possibility. We'll talk about it at 7:05. Maybe also pushing a record number of times John Brummett praises Asa Hutchinson's leadership and pragmatism, moving Arkansas in the right direction, which, he's a big progressive liberal. So maybe it's the greatest session of all time for Arkansas progressives. Maybe. Folks, I had the pleasure of sitting down with an angel dad. His name is Steve Ronnebeck. We Build the Wall. Sat down with him a few days ago, and it sounded like this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. I want to go now. We have on the phone Mr. Steve Ronnebeck is with us. He is an angel dad, and he is also with the GoFundMe campaign, We Build the Wall. Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to have you on. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on at the border, but I also want to first talk about We Build the Wall, and tell us about the We Build the Wall GoFundMe campaign. How much money have you guys raised?
Right now, we're sitting right around $22 million, and the donations are coming in every day.
Okay, that's a lot of money, and I think it speaks to really, how the American people feel about this. This is a huge issue. It's just one of the reasons Donald Trump's in the White House.
Oh, absolutely. We have almost 150,000 so far this year that have come across our southern border illegally. The numbers are growing. We have a new caravan that's formed. This is ridiculous. It's got to stop.
What do you think about Donald Trump's idea, or at least one of the ideas floated, hey, let's just put them all in sanctuary cities? And now we have the Democrats. Now, really, their compassion is exposed as being phony because they really are admitting the fact that would be a disaster for some of their cities.
Oh, and it's true. The homeless problem in California is at epidemic levels now. If we start shipping these illegals off to California or Chicago or other sanctuary cities across the United States, their crime rates are going to go up. Their homeless rates are going to go up. Their social service programs are going to break. They're already stretched to the limit. That'll just break them. There's just not enough money. There's not enough, resources for all these people coming across our border.
We're talking with Steve Ronnebeck. Now, Steve, I mentioned earlier that you're an angel dad, so obviously your activism here is a result of tragic circumstances. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah. January 22nd, 2015, my son Grant was working the overnight shift at Quick Trip in Mesa, a Quick Trip in Mesa. An illegal alien came in, wanted to buy cigarettes, and dumped a jar of change out on the counter. Well, Grant went to start counting the change, and evidently wasn't counting the change fast enough. This man said, "What, you're not going to give me my cigarettes?" And Grant tried to explain to him, "Hey, I got to count your change first." So this man pulled a gun. Grant did everything he was supposed to do. He offered up the cigarettes, gave them to him, here you go. And at that point, this man shot my son point blank in the face, killing him.
Oh, my gosh. Did they ever find the man that did that?
Yeah, we were very lucky. There was somebody in the store that witnessed it, and Mesa Police Department was, they went out of their way to catch this man. Police officers tend to frequent Quick Trip and nicer convenience stores. And luckily there was a police officer that pulled in within 5 minutes after Grant was murdered. And the witness said, "Hey, this is who it was, and this is what he's driving." So they were able to catch this man within about a half an hour. He led the police department on a 26-mile high-speed chase before they ended up doing a pit maneuver and putting him into a pole.
And so where is he now?
Well, we're still awaiting trial. He is in Maricopa County Jail awaiting trial.
So, I this goes without saying, and you try to convince people who are maybe in the middle of this this domestic political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue at all at this point, but it is. But you try to convince them of families like yours, Steve, and this is a preventable crime. This person was here illegally, shouldn't have been in the country to begin with, and they want to somehow say that border security is immoral when, if we would enforce our laws, your son might still be here today.
And it's absolutely true. I mean, there were several failures in the system. The illegal alien that murdered Grant was also a prior felon. Him and his wife and another man did a home invasion. They held a woman captive naked for 10 days, sexually assaulting her for that 10 days, filling her full of heroin, and they scared her so bad that she became an unreliable witness. So he was able to plead his prior crimes down to felony burglary. He actually never did a day in prison, and he was on day 795 of an ICE bond. And these are stories that are happening every day. This is what's happening in our country. Is it seems that these illegal aliens are favored, and they're able to plead down or lessen their sentences. And if they have children that were born in the United States, or they were part of the Dreamer Act, they're able to skirt the system. Right now, we're averaging 5 to 7 a day murders at the hands of an illegal alien. We're averaging 20 to 30 a day that are dying from heroin and fentanyl, which we all know that 90% of the heroin and fentanyl coming in our country is coming across our southern border.
Yes.
78% of that number is actually coming across right here in Arizona.
We're talking with Steve Ronnebeck. He's an angel dad, and we want to talk about this GoFundMe campaign, We Build the Wall. They've already raised $22 million. We Build the Wall is now a nonprofit, correct, Steve?
That is correct.
What did you make about the news of a Christian Nielsen resigning as the Department of Homeland Security Secretary? Do you think President Trump is trying to send a message that he just wasn't pleased with the results so far? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's a couple things. I think that this problem is so overwhelming, and it's been going on for so long, that there isn't one perfect answer. I think that, yes, he is trying to send a message saying, it is time that we take the hard line on this issue, and we protect our country and our citizens. He wants results, and he wasn't getting them.
Yeah. What do you think? So this money, this $22 million, I'm assuming it's going to grow. More people are going to continue giving to this. How do you actually go about, as a nonprofit, private endeavor, constructing a border wall?
Well, the first thing we did is we decided that we were going to go on private land. Okay? So we have ranchers all across the southern border that we've contacted, or they've contacted us and said, hey, we want a wall on our land. We want a fence. We want something. Because, again, what a lot of people don't realize is these ranchers are suffering almost worse than what's happening in the interior of our country. Their lands are getting destroyed.
Yeah.
The trash, the danger. I mean, we have ranchers here in Arizona that I know personally that they've given up locking their doors at night or when they leave, and they just leave them open because it costs them less money to replace the stuff that gets stolen than it does to have to rebuild a door frame or rebuild. Yeah, I mean, the insurance claims, it costs them more money to have to rebuild part of their house than it does just to replace stuff. I know one lady that has a ranch on the southern border that she actually had a cartel spotter that knew her routine. He would let himself into her house because he knew where her key was. He'd go in, he'd take a shower, fix himself some breakfast, take a nap, clean up his dishes, clean up whatever mess he made, and leave before she came back in the afternoon.
That's incredible. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. And this is in the United States of America, where we're essentially just, for decades, we're just going to allow this to happen. I mean, the whole point of the rule of law is that you're supposed to have a reasonable expectation that when you leave your home, things are going to be the same way when you get back. But so what we're seeing down there, it's the Wild West. It's just lawlessness down there, Steve.
Oh, it is absolutely lawlessness. Tim Foley from Arizona Border Recon is a friend of mine. I'm also part of Arizona Border Recon. I've seen trail cam video of a group of 30 to 40 cartel members, all dressed in military gear, carrying AK-47s, carrying sidearms, crossing over illegally into our country, carrying those weapons so they can escort drugs or high-value illegal immigrants. And they're escorting them not just maybe feet, but miles into into Arizona to help them get across the border. I mean, in any other country in the world, that would be an act of war.
Yes. Well, let's talk about real quick the other part. You mentioned the fentanyl. You mentioned obviously you're an angel dad, so I mean this is very personal. But let's talk about sex trafficking. This is like the main thing. I was reading the other day, it's a $150 billion a year industry, and it gets very little attention in the mainstream media because I just think they realize there's no way they can claim the moral high ground if they actually start talking about what's going on when it comes to women and children and sex trafficking at the border. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. That the sex trafficking is a horrendous industry. And again, a lot of people aren't realizing that a lot of these family units that are being picked up at the border, a lot of these children don't belong to the adults that are supposedly part of this family unit. Mm-hmm. Right now in Mexico, as of January 1, there was over 25,000 reported missing children in Mexico. And God knows how many more in the further outlying countries. These children are being kidnapped. They're being bought with the promise of, we're going to give your child a better life. And they're being used to get across the border. And then all of a sudden, well, hey, we're going to make money off this child or this woman. It's sickening. Fiscal year 2014, North Carolina alone. Fiscal year 2014, they had over 1,483 sexual assaults against children committed by 950 illegal aliens.
Gosh.
Yeah. The other bad part of this is these women that are coming in these groups and these younger females that are coming in these caravans or these groups, it's reported that 1 out of 3 can expect to be sexually assaulted on the trip up, and then once they're brought across the border, they end up going into the sex trade because they need to pay off their debt.
We're talking with Steve Ronnebeck. Steve, I'm going to make sure this is the right page. I've got the GoFundMe. This is Brian Colfage's page, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
WeBuildTheWall.us.
Okay, so you can go right here. Let me pull this down. I'm showing our listeners this. Here's the GoFundMe page. It's really convenient. They've raised just south or just over, I guess, $21 million, and your goal is $1 billion. Is that right?
That is correct. We want enough money that we can supplement the wall that our president is building.
So I just want to remind everybody about Brian Colfage. That he is I believe he's the most injured airman in American history. Is that right? When it comes to combat?
Yeah, this man is one of our heroes. He's one of our hero veterans. And I'm going to put this bluntly. This man was literally blown up in Iraq, okay? He lost both his legs, and he lost one of his arms in service of our country. This man came back and wanted to continue serving. And this is how he's doing it. He got tired of seeing what's happening in our country. with these illegals. And this is the idea he had, and this is what he's doing.
Wow. It's amazing, and I see it according to the GoFundMe page, raised, this is so far 355,717 people have donated in 3 months, and you've gotten this much money. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing, Steve, and I just, God bless you, and I'm so sorry the circumstances of your son, but I know you're doing what you think is right so that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
Oh, and thank you so much. And I'm going to tell you, I don't want to be famous. I don't. But my son deserves this, and I'm not going to stop fighting for him and all the other victims. And whether people think so or not, I'm fighting for them so that this doesn't happen to their family. Nobody should ever have to bury a child, a brother, a sister. I mean, nobody should. It's horrendous, and it changes a family forever.
Yeah.
And I would never want anybody else to have to go through this.
We got to secure the border. We got to do something about this illegal immigration problem. Steve Ronnebeck, we appreciate it. Angel Dad GoFundMe campaign, We Build the Wall. Steve, God bless you and your family.
Thank you, sir, and have a great day.
You too. Folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
On the same product that's already taxed to get around the 75% threshold. And now, of course, you know, it does translate to the consumer 3 cents and to 6 cents if you're paying diesel. But it's funny that you mentioned that. It is a very strong constitutional provision, and I think it should mean something. But here, unfortunately, recently we saw. I think they got around it. Now it's up for debate, but you know, we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I'm a big believer in putting things into state laws, state constitutions to protect taxpayers, to raise the threshold as high as possible in order to raise taxes, to make sure if there's really a need for more tax revenue, which I would argue in almost every case across the country, there's more ways to find waste and fraud and inefficiencies in government before going back to taxpayers and asking for more. I think that there ought to be a pretty broad consensus and a bipartisan consensus to raise.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Tim on Facebook writing, build the wall already. One criminal illegal alien victimizing an American is too many. Any politician who cannot support eliminating sanctuary cities, building the wall, and ending this scourge on our nation must be replaced. Look at who did not vote for SB 411. Now that's Tim. He's talking about SB 411 on the sanctuary cities, anti-sanctuary cities bill that the legislature did pass at the last minute, right before session ended. If you are just joining us, we're going to get a very interesting analysis. I'm sure. I've just told Senator Brian King going to be calling in at 7:05. Former Senator Brian King going to be calling in at 7:05. So we're always excited to talk to him. It's been too long. It was interesting. It'll be interesting to talk to him just in terms of how the session went from his perspective, being somebody who wasn't down there this time, But anyway, if you're just joining us, this morning, Attorney General William Barr will be holding a press conference and will be going over the Mueller report findings that will be released shortly after that to Congress they're saying, according to the Washington Post, lightly redacted form. Lightly redacted, which will be interesting. And this is going to give the media essentially, as I said earlier, I don't think you should trust a word they say in terms of their analysis. But William Barr will be there. Rod Rosenstein apparently is going to be there with him. The Deputy Attorney General is going to be there with him. And you got to remember, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, you better not fire Rod Rosenstein. Well, guess what? Trump didn't fire Rod Rosenstein, even though the New York Times reported that Rod Rosenstein talked about wearing a wire with Andrew McCabe to try to entrap the President of the United States. That is sedition, if not worse. But he didn't fire him, did he? He didn't fire him. Remember when he almost fired him, or did he almost fire him? Do you remember that? All of a sudden, there were reports, headlines, Trump firing Rod Rosenstein. Do you remember this? It was a big deal. And then that turned out not to be true. It turned out to be fake news, and then Rod Rosenstein went to the White House, and then the president wasn't there. And then it's like, hey, I'll meet you later. Do you remember all of this? Interesting. If you go back in hindsight and look at that, you think to myself, was that just a total fabrication? Was it just an attempt to get the president to fire Rosenstein so that they could then charge him with a process crime like obstruction? Today will be very, very interesting, in my opinion. What will William Barr... You know what I'm interested to hear from William Barr? Let's just say this whole process was just as bad as we thought it was. I wonder if William Barr is going to reflect and just take a little bit of point of personal privilege and talk to the people about what he has found at the Justice Department since he's been there and how it has been run over the last 8 years in the Obama administration versus how it was supposed to run. Meaning, have the standards gotten lower? Has the bar gotten lower? And is William Barr trying to, well, good grief, I didn't even mean to do it. Is he trying to raise the bar back where it needs to be? Normally I like to plan my puns. Sometimes they just happen. We will be back here in just a moment. We got one more hour coming your way next. We'll be talking with Brian King, and also business owner Chad Neal will be in studio right next to me here at 7:30. Don't go anywhere.
The news and
Sportsman Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
On the same product that's already taxed to get around the 75% threshold. And now, of course, it does translate to the consumer 3 cents and to 6 cents if you're paying diesel. But it's funny that you mentioned that. It is a very strong constitutional provision, and I think it should mean something. But here, unfortunately, recently we saw. I think they got around it. Now it's up for debate, but we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens.
Well, I think you're exactly right. I'm a big believer in putting things into state laws, state constitutions to protect taxpayers, to raise the threshold as high as possible in order to raise taxes, to make sure if there's really a need for more tax revenue, which I would argue in almost every case across the country, there's more ways to find waste and fraud and inefficiencies in government before going back to taxpayers and asking for more. I think that there ought to be a pretty broad consensus and a bipartisan consensus to raise people's taxes even further. And so I think, I've been a big skeptic of efforts to try to get around these type of supermajority requirements. In fact, that was brought to my attention. We had it on our radar watching that unfortunate gas tax debate play out, where I think, obviously you've got to have a discussion on road funding, but separately, you've got to look about honoring things that have been promised in the state constitution, such as protecting taxpayers through that kind of a threshold.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Jonathan. So, Arkansas specifically, where did we come down in your findings?
So good and bad news here is Arkansas came down at 23rd for economic outlook when you put together all those 15 equally weighted variables, many of those that we were just talking about. And there's obviously some reasons of those 15 that I think drove that ranking to 23rd. But let me take a historic look at this for just a second. And if you go back to 2012, Arkansas ranked number 11, almost cracked into the top 10 of our economic outlook rankings. And so Arkansas has seen a pretty significant slide and loss of economic competitiveness since 2012, where Arkansas ranked 11, falling all those spots down to 23rd this year. Now, I should add one caveat there, and that is our rankings are based as of data as of January 1st. So nothing that's happened in this legislative session has affected Arkansas's score here. So whether that's the gas tax increase or whether that's some of the income tax rate reductions that I think were positive, neither one of those things were considered yet.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If Arkansas has taken a slide since 2012, is that you think that's because there are other states that are maybe, moving forward, like maybe making changes in the positive faster than we are? Or is it the stuff that we've actually done? Is there any way to even know that?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that certainly when you look at new net tax increases, that would be a damaging effect. But on the other hand, you hit the nail on the head. When you look at these relative indices like ours, in rich states, poor states, you take a look at sometimes states fall behind just by standing still. And you are not only in a competitive nation where more than 30 states have significantly reduced their tax burdens over the last 5 years alone. The new Trump tax reform and what that's meant for states being able to cut their rates, having these surplus dollars sitting around, that's been a big phenomenon that we've seen. But, on the other hand, sometimes, bad moves do move states in the wrong direction pretty quickly. And I think it's important to keep in mind, Arkansas is in an incredibly competitive region when it comes to states, bordering states such as Tennessee with no personal income tax, and a state that has moved the ball in the right direction in the top 10 in economic outlook. The Wall Street Journal just editorialized about Tennessee, citing rich states, poor states this morning. And, of course, Texas, two of the most competitive states, not only in the region but in America, are sitting just outside of Arkansas. So I think that's an important point to remember for lawmakers as well.
Really appreciate this report. Really appreciate this conversation. We're talking with the lead economist of ALEC, Jonathan Williams. Jonathan, can you tell me, I see here in the report, I'm looking at two numbers. I've got the economic outlook for Arkansas at 23rd. The economic performance ranking is, though, at 30th. What are the difference between those two terms?
Well, good question. And every year we do both of those rankings for the states. I think the more instructive ranking is the Outlook ranking, which is our forecast based on the current 15 criteria that we measure.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Intersection of conservative ideas and reality, building a liberty machine. So glad that you are with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. I understand we got a special guest on the line. We've got the former state senator, Brian King, is back with us. Brian, how you been, sir?
Hey, you're doing good. Just working and,
working,
making payments and paying my taxes and stuff.
Yep, doing the right thing. Well, I'm just curious. The session, 92nd General Assembly session's over. Were you watching things that were happening from afar back home?
Well, I still read the propaganda out of a lot of the newspapers that we see, and of course the article today popped up. And
what do you think about that article today? Governor Hutchinson says that the 92nd General Assembly was, quote, the greatest of all time.
Well, I just go back to see my real life is being a farmer, and it's that old saying, wait till the hay's in the barn, wait till whatever you want to say about the session and this and that. And I saw a lot of things a lot of debatable things happen, but you have to wait. And, of course, they go to the liberal people to give their assessment of his, comment. And, of course, they go back to expansion of government type things. But I would say probably one of the greatest sessions that turned out was even before I came, when Governor Huckabee was down there. And then when he left, leaves almost $1 billion surplus. And that session in 2007 that I came in, which I can't take credit for it. Give the credit to Governor Huckabee. We only did what he left. And he leaves almost $1 billion surplus. We have the largest tax cutting, not tax raising, not raising this, taking money out of one person's pocket, trying to give it to another one. And, the largest tax cutting session in Arkansas history happened in 2007 because of the work of Governor Huckabee and legislative leaders before when I came in. And we gave $456 million to schools. That was money in the bank that went out into construction that we might have disagreed how that might have been spent, better spent in highways or less in schools or this, that. But the fact is, you had money in the bank. I really am like, today's society is more about what you say than what you produce later, because you're just going to try to talk your way out of it or lie or get out of it once things don't turn out the way they do. I don't know how anybody can sit there and say something like that, even if it was Brian King, when you don't even know the results yet. That just blows my mind.
Have you been following all of the tax increases that happened this session? And I know we have some Republicans who are saying are going to try to tweak the numbers and make it seem like it was somehow a net tax cut. But we have other Republicans. Matter of fact, I saw a Facebook post by State Representative Jim Dotson, who said, you know what, the bottom line is this: the people are going to be paying more money after this 92nd General Assembly.
Yeah, there's going to be more paid in taxes than there will be given out. That's what happens in today's world. That's why. We go back to the history. This is not a surprise. This is a product of what's been happening down there. We have all these Republicans oppose Obamacare. Oppose Obamacare. What do? They go down there and implement Obamacare in a more expensive form of Obamacare. And then 2015, let's go back to Jim Hendren, how, the private option is going to end, but it didn't end. Okay. It just has kept going. And so, it just keeps going. That's why this is such a perplexing time today to sit there and see how, the results of things doesn't matter. They just repackage it, lie, whatever they need to do. And then what you see now is they try and attack you personally and just tell lies about you and misinterpret anything you say towards them to get the focus off of what is really happened down there is that, they're going to pay more taxes. But there's no accountability in the truth out there in the media. There's some good reporters out there, and I think they've heard me say that. They know who I think they are. But yet, if you look at what's happened up there at the Capitol and the reporting, it's like this article. I mean, I don't know. It just is very troubling to see what's been going on. And, just keep fighting it. I don't sit there and back down. The other day, John Moritz, who covered some of the Senate Judiciary Committee meetings, was disparaging Jeremy Hutchinson. And you know what? I called him out on Twitter. The guy never answers. I mean, you know why? Because he protected Jeremy Hutchinson. There was exchanges between me and Jeremy Hutchinson. He never did. He disparaged me and tried to protect Jeremy Hutchinson. And then now everything's come out bad. He's starting to say things.
What were your thoughts? I mean, Jeremy Hutchinson indicted for the second time last week on charges that we thought he was going to be indicted the first time. This was the bribes that he was allegedly taking from Preferred Family Health Care. What were your thoughts on that, considering that you ran a Medicaid disclosure bill several times that could never pass? Four times that would have required Jeremy Hutchinson to disclose he was getting $9,000 a month from a Medicaid provider for doing no legal work.
Yeah, but you can have all the laws you want to, and if they don't pay attention to them, remember this ban on lobbying thing, and then you had John Burris, he's a consultant. You had this ban on lobbying, yet they find jobs for Johnny Key and all these other government jobs that are not lobbying, but they're government rewards. I mean, they're rewards for. So there's so many ways to get around it. And, in fact, in a debate on the Senate floor, I asked Jeremy Hutchinson, "Do you disclose who your clients are?" And he said yes. He lied. He just lied. I mean, I just and no questions, nothing about Jim Hendren and his involvement with Jeremy. You've got to see Michael Lamoureux mentioned. You see court documents came out even a while back. It's been some time that somehow Cranford was working with the governor at that time to get a convicted murderer out earlier or something like that. A convicted felon, let's say. No questions. Nobody asked anything about that. You have Senator F that comes out in this last thing. No questions about that. So, it's almost like something has to come out in court documents where they have to see it. But, back on this point, my gosh, I just even Governor Beebe would not have said something like that. I mean, it just... You're
talking about Ace's comments that this was the greatest of all time, the greatest session of all time? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. But like I said, once you live in a world down there right now where nobody questions anything, no one says anything, and, they look around, they think, well, you're going to have like a race like mine where you're going to have $200,000+ of dark money for these cowards that fund these races, to sit there and, tell lies about you. I mean, somebody brought up the other day, Americans Prosperity rated me the same as Will Bond and Joyce Elliott. I mean, ouch. And so would you say crooked and rigged on that deal to try and make things? But it just hopefully is anything, the truth will finally come out. And, like I said, I just can't even believe in today's world was you have to wait and see what the end thing is. But that's not the way it goes today. Today you just go out and say whatever, promise anything, lie, whatever, and then 2 years later, when it turns out bad, you recraft it. You recraft your words, and then you'd say, well, it wasn't that, it was this, and you're being mean, a bully. I always love it whenever people have personal attacks and stuff like that, and I see that with Jim Hendren, too. He's a classic example. He does that to get the focus off of what he's done.
Now talk about that, Brian. Expand on that. The idea that you would just make something personal. You're saying that deflects from looking at the substance. Let's say if you have grown government, or you've raised taxes, or you've kind of taken the progressive way of governing, and you know the people don't want it. Are you saying that it's just much easier if you make it personal? Then then you get the emotional, which is what the liberals do. They like to have emotional arguments, not fact-based arguments.
Yeah, I mean, it's all today. It's not even conservative. Literally, it's in the person where they just say, "Oh, you're being mean and you're a bully and you can never be happy." You remember how for years down there they said that about me, and that's all they kept saying is, Brian's just mean. He's a bully, and that's what to get the focus off of actually because they want to get the focus off of what you're saying and the facts. They don't want to tackle that.
Yeah.
All they want to say is this. And it's always that I'm a victim, never the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And, let's say it. It's working. And unfortunately, one reason why it's working is because they feed the money machine. As long as they can give $50 million back in tax cuts and then take $70 million over here and they have a net $20 million, they can take that $20 million and they feed the Medicaid mafia. The Medicaid mafia down there has literally ran the system in Arkansas, and it still does today. And you can see why bills fail and why debate doesn't happen. And, just like I said, this thing with all the corruption going on down there, and, it took years for me to see it. I mean, there was a lot of times I didn't want, you just didn't think it or something was odd, and then later it comes out. And now I look back and see a lot of different things. At the time when you're in that whirlwind, you don't see it. But this is what happened. This is a classic example of why we are different than them. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because you go out there with facts and everything like that, question them and everything, well, then it's the victim mentality. Or it's, I did the greatest thing ever. Well, you get to focus on the comment except what happened. And, of course, a lot of the media, the Capitol reporters down there, they're just part of the propaganda machine. I mean, my gosh, look at what's come out in court documents. There's been a mountain of things that need to be investigated, questioned, everything like that, and there's nothing. I mean, there's some coming out with some of them, but yet there has been so much more related back to the Hutchinson and the Hendrens and all that, and they say nothing. I mean, Jim Hendren, once again, $4,000 to Jake Files, who winds up in prison for bribery. No more further questioning on that. You can interchange money between legislators, no problem. So you've had no payment, no obligation loans, nothing on that. And, like I said, once again, it's all about that. And then the response back is, well, you're mean, or you're a bully, or you're attacking my war record, or you're doing this or that, anytime you question them. And so it gets the focus off, and the media is all too willing, a lot of the media, not some of them, a lot of the media is all too welcome to help purport that.
Yeah. We're talking with former Senator Brian King. You mentioned real quick some of these other people who've been mentioned in guilty pleas or indictments, Senator A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I mean, we might be setting a record for using the most letters of the alphabet to describe political actors in indictments. You think there are more people who haven't been indicted, and if so, is it because you think maybe they're cooperating with the government?
I don't know, and just because you've been named in something does not mean you've done something wrong. And but so I'm not saying that. What I will say is that there has been a cabal down there that has protected each other to the point that they fought any type of disclosure or any type of question that went to the heart of trying to find out what the true motivation is to try and do that. I mean, we had it in court. Once again, when we talk about nothing reported on, we have it in court documents that a legislator was talking about trading his vote for the private option or other money that they got kickbacks out of. No reporting on it. No questions asked. I'm just saying questions asked. I'm not even saying something's wrong. I'm not even saying something's criminal. But once again, I mean, I don't know how you could sit back and look. Like I said, it took a while for me to see it. I mean, I'll admit that. And it took a while to kind of grasp your head. But the turning point to me was when it was reported out, when Lamoureux got the $120,000. I mean, we knew Gilbert Baker was getting that money and everything. Okay. When Lamoureux got the $120,000 from Faith and Freedom to do consulting work, for his answer was to recruit candidates and inform people on issues. That's what he was reported as saying. Okay? I was a Republican leader, 2009, recruited candidates, raised money, did all this stuff. You know what, Paul? I did it out of my own pocket. Okay? I didn't get a consulting fee. Didn't even think about it. And these people now that go out there and try and defend themselves in taking money, can you make mistakes or bad judgments or something like that and everything down there in that whirlwind you don't know and don't trust it? Yes. But the fact is, Lamoureux and Jeremy Hutchinson, just what's been outlined in court documents alone, okay, they're innocent until proven guilty. I have my own opinion about it. But you could look at it, it's totaled $1.5 million or so. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, a steak dinner at Doe's or something. You know, we're talking about Jeremy Hudson's been outlined that he got payments for almost totaling $1 million in two entities alone.
And you know, and he was using, and this, you know, he was using his position to essentially pass legislation, hold up budget, hold up budget.
Yes.
Hey, this I couldn't believe this, Brian, when the Gazette was reporting, or excuse me, the court, the indictment of Jeremy says that he held up budgets in order to get the bills passed that were favorable for preferred family health care. I thought to myself, wow, this should be big news. Do you remember when the conservatives were trying to hold up the DHS budget to try to, you know, use the Constitution to stop funding for Obamacare Medicaid expansion? And they were doing it legally, and they were, you know, supposed to be the scourge of humanity. And yet here's Jeremy, who was doing it illegally, and, you know, it gets reported, but there's not nearly the amount of outrage.
Well, we all hold up budgets. I've held up budgets too. We all requested audits. We did those things, and we did it based on people and everything. And, you know, a lot of times I think a lot of these people, some of these people down there have got led into things because they didn't see what was behind the scenes. You know, certainly I didn't see so much like with Lamoureux until the $120,000 come out. And, I mean, that's just a straight check. I mean, if you're making $40,000 a year, that's 4 years of work you would have to do to make $40,000 a year. He made it in one check for doing something that he you know. Well, and in his answer in public was really downright embarrassing, to say the least.
Yeah, and to remind
everybody. But there's no questions about that. If you start questioning things about that, you start saying something, well, then here they come. And then here the Medicaid mafia comes in, funding dark money. You know, there is a documentary out there that you Google. It's called Dark Money, and it's on Montana and all the races up there. And it's from a left perspective, but people really need to watch that. And it shows this, and, you know, it just allows these groups to do whatever they want to. And, you know, there's things that go on with money and things like that that are okay. I mean, that could pass. But it's not whenever you're, you know, trying to expose corruption and things like that. And that's why I'm for, in all this money, if you want to get down to the root of everything, it's just no limits and open disclosure.
Yes.
Nowhere who's funding who what.
I agree, 100%. I think that would solve the problem. Senator Brian King, man, or former Senator Brian King, it's always great to have you on. I really appreciate your perspective, sir. Thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, I'm going back to work.
All right, going back to work. We've got to take a break here. I do want to point out in this article, this article where Asa Hutchinson says that it was the greatest session of all time. They go over some of the achievements. Quote, the legislature also made changes to fund 9/11 systems more efficiently. Made changes. What exactly were those changes? Oh, yeah, increasing your cell phone tax bill. That's right. But the Gazette calls it, they made changes. They raised your taxes to do it. Unbelievable. Back in a minute.
In public policy, where we think that state is headed. The performance rank is also, I think, very important, although it's kind of more of a historical look at where the state has been over the past decade. So we just take the last 10 years worth of data on things like GDP growth in the state. We look at employment, job creation of the state. And then one that's very interesting that I don't know if it gets enough attention is just how much Americans are voting with their feet, as we like to say, or voting with their pocketbooks and moving from state to state. So we look at net domestic migration across states. And this takes out international immigration, this takes out birth rates or death rates, and what it focuses on is, we as economists would say, a revealed preference. Where are people wanting to go? Where are these economic opportunities? And it turns out that when we look at it on a 50-state basis, people are voting with their feet very strongly towards states that value a free market, low-tax environment, and many states that avoid personal income taxes, like Tennessee and Texas and Florida, are the largest winners nationally.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So the governor says it's the greatest session of all time. The GOAT, the greatest of all time. He was before 200 people attending the Arkansas Bankers Association. I wonder who it was the greatest session of all time for who? What, highway construction people, Medicaid entities? I mean, I'm just curious. I don't really know. Not for the taxpayer, though. I mean, there was a standalone income tax cut, but then you got to offset it, and we got to take a little bit more and a little bit more. What do you actually see what the numbers are going to be for fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2021? I've seen them, and it's very easy. You just do basic math. But in the Gazette article here this morning, let's see here. It cites a Democrat. Historians, the session. Where is this part? Yeah, is it up here? Let's see. Asa Hutchinson, Wednesday, regular session, greatest of all time. Afterward, 3 political scientists said something about it. Hang on one second. We're going to use this right here as we're running out of time. There was some discussion. Oh, here we go. Up here. About Bumpers, Dale Bumpers, and what he did. Oh, yeah. Bobby Glover, former Democrat state senator from Carlisle, told him this is the most aggressive agenda and most successful session that he can remember in his lifetime. So the Democrats give him praise. On this list.
This is an incredible story in itself. Utah has been number one for all 12 editions of Rich States, Poor States.
Wow.
And let me give you a quick recap of why I think that's the case. Is they have created a flat tax in Utah under Governor John Huntsman, and they got their rates down below 5% now on business and personal, so significantly lower than Arkansas's combined rates on both business and personal. They've also done a couple of very innovative things on stopping property tax increases through the assessment process, which often happens, where local governments will say, we just cut your property tax rate, but you realize your bill is actually higher than it was last year. What happened is they raise your assessment, but they are not responsible. They don't take votes a lot of times that are recorded on those type of things. Utah makes local governments take votes on property taxes. And then finally, I think this is the big one, and this is the existential financial crisis, I think, facing state and local governments across the country, and that is these massive unfunded public pension liabilities in these remaining defined benefit plans for government workers, where the private sector decades ago went to the 401k model in defined contribution. Utah has been one of the leading states at the cutting edge of transitioning public employees as new hires come in and giving them that option and getting more employees into the 401k model, which is sustainable for taxpayers and, by the way, better for government workers, these millennials coming into the workforce that want to take their assets with them as they go from job to job.
Wow. That is certainly a long list of accomplishments from Utah. And I'm just looking here, like you said, top marginal personal income tax rate 4.9, top marginal corporate 4.9. And looking at the sales tax burden, let me ask you this. That's a consumption taxes. I mean, if I'm going to pay a tax personally, I would rather it be a consumption tax. But sometimes these sales taxes, they just get pretty burdensome when you start to combine the local and state. Your local sales tax, your state sales tax, and you're now at 10% or 11%, or maybe more. At some point, I kind of think to myself, well, is there a line? Is there a line where we're going to say that this is too much of a sales tax on the people every time they buy something?
Well, it certainly is something to be concerned with, and this is why I think it's so important to always, when we're talking about taxes, keep in mind that's only one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is government spending, and if we don't keep government spending down, regardless of the type of tax that you choose, even though consumption taxes are less damaging than capital-based or income taxes at large, when you get those rates too high, like we see in a lot of cases, and you know this well, Arkansas.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. So there was a few headlines. One headline of the Jonesboro Sun detailed a lawsuit against a Republican GOP senator. That Republican senator is John Cooper. The plaintiff in the case is businessman Chad Neal. Chad joins us in studio. Chad, good to have you back on the program, sir.
Hey, good morning, Paul.
So tell us a little bit about this. I mean, I know, obviously I don't know as much as you, but why are you suing Senator John Cooper?
Well, it's unfortunate. It's obviously a last resort ditch effort just to stop him from harassing me and my company. I mean, he won the election and he just can't get over it. Immediately after he became senator, my customers throughout the state started getting requests for legislative audit.
To remind everybody, you ran against Cooper in a primary for that seat 4 years ago.
That's right, 4 years ago. And I take issue with the Jonesboro Sun saying this is political because that was 4 years ago. It's not political. And when John Cooper and his one of his henchmen, Ray Hackworth, filed ethics charges against myself and Billy Sue, it wasn't political in the Jonesboro Sun. I had done something wrong, which was proven that I did not, and it was all just frivolous and just more attempts to harass us. So anyway, customers have just continued through his last 4 years to get legislative audits, just asking for contracts, how much money they make, how much money inmates spends with us, which inmates don't spend any money with us. It's the county's money. And he's not uncovered anything because there's nothing there to uncover. But it gives the impression that to people that are doing business with us that, well, wow, you're getting legislatively audited. What have you done wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and nothing. But it's just that impression and the harassment that's, you know, unfortunately, we could have filed this during the session, but we know he would have fought it, and we'd have just had to refile. So we've waited this long to do it.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the history here. I mean, to me, I have seen just from a distance the Craighead County Republican Committee, which you're a member of.
Yes.
You're involved in. And so Senator John Cooper. And there seems to be a divide in that committee. I mean, you know, and I think we can all admit it and be congenial about it. There seems to be, you know, some people who are maybe more conservative, and John Cooper would call them the Tea Party types, which
Right.
he doesn't like.
Right.
Openly is stated multiple times, even though that's who elected him.
Absolutely.
And that's who knocked doors for him, which is that's a whole nother argument. But and then maybe the more establishment types. Does that have anything to do with this here? Maybe your influence in the committee?
I think, you know, when you say divide, you think of something maybe 50-50. And I just think there's a small handful of people in the committee that are split. And John, and those are the people that hang their hat on with Cooper. Good for them. I mean, a lot of people in these committees are there for personal reasons. They're looking for appointment or something like that. So naturally, you got to be nice to him because he's the guy that has the power to get you that or not.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, people maybe have a false liking to him, I would say, just because they have to get what they want.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that people can't just stand up for their principles and say, hey, this is the way it is and this is the way it isn't. And
Right.
forget you. And I'm one of those guys. You know, I'm going to stand up for my principles, and I'm not going to cow down to anybody. And yes, we've had some issues in the committee. I was the chair of the our rules committee, and several times we've gone in the committee, and John was on the committee, and we'd agree to do something, and then when we bring it into the committee, he'd throw a monkey wrench in it and want to vote for something totally different, which is not what the committee's for. You should hash that out in committee.
Yeah.
You know, and he'd always lose, and so that was another burr in his side. So it's just those kind of issues.
So you're audited in a way every year, right? My
company?
Yeah, your company.
You have
Tiger
state,
Corrections.
Yeah,
right?
you have state auditors that come in and audit
That's what
the financial accounts for the sheriff's departments.
Right.
And so they're audited every year. And,
Okay.
and our software, in large part, was designed to appease them.
Okay.
Because back early on, when I started 20 years ago, that really didn't occur that much. And then when they started auditing them, they would say, hey, we'd like to see this report. We want to see the numbers done like this. And so we've always appeased them and worked with them and give them software demos and made sure that it was acceptable to their standards.
So what specifically, I mean, I know Senator Cooper starts sending letters with official Arkansas State Senate letterhead.
Yes.
And you think that made it look like you were under some sort of investigation?
You would think, yes. Well, anytime the legislative audit starts calling customers, it throws up a red flag.
Right.
I'd have sheriffs call me and go, well, who have you made mad now?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, specifically in the suit, you mentioned the Bureau of Legislative Research, right? The BLR?
Yeah.
So he was using them as
Yes.
well?
Yes.
That's
what we think.
Right.
And you know, this is going to be hard to prove because I mean, we have proof that he's used his own letterhead and we know that it was him behind this. But now if the shoe was on the other foot, like when he goes out to Craighead and wants a copy of my contract and I don't want to give it up, then I've got something to hide. So now you watch, he's going to hide behind every privilege afforded him as an elected official to not have to give information to clear this up at the whole time saying he didn't do anything wrong. But you watch how secretive and all the stuff that he's going to try to pull. We know he's going to try to get it thrown out right off the bat, and that's not going to happen. We think we have strong evidence to move the case forward.
Yeah.
And and we'll just see what happens
So
from there.
aside from the letterhead, I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that's public. So what other evidence?
Well, obviously it's an ongoing case, and we don't want to show our hand right now.
Okay,
So,
I got you.
Right. So, but we, there'll be testimony, there'll be things that we'll bring that shows that even the letters that he wrote in the ethics complaints against myself and Billy Sue, just flat out falsehoods, just made up, conjured up stuff. I mean,
I read one Exhibit 2 that I thought it was interesting from Senator Cooper. He seemed to disparage your success as a businessman, or seemed to say things about Billy Sue, who in Cricket County, Billy Sue Hoggard's a Republican pioneer in terms of the work that she's done, about how he makes some allegation how she was infatuated with the money.
Yeah,
and
it's
else.
just ridiculous.
But it's personal. And
it is. It makes everything
and
personal.
And it just seems very odd for a senator to.
Well, you would think that a person in that position would be above that. They could show some statesmanship, and he's just, in my opinion, been incapable of that through this whole process. And that's just false. Billy Sue and I go back over 20 years. I mean, I was actually friends with her when she was running against Dustin McDaniel, for state rep. Okay, so I've known her since then. My family has babysit her kids. My daughter's babysit her kids, and so when we went on that, and she's had no influence at all over any of my contracts at Craighead. She's not on the finance committee. She had no oversight over any of it. Didn't know anything about them, and we'd never even discussed it. We're such good friends. I often forget that she was even on that the Quorum Court.
Yeah. So do you think, would you say that part of the reason maybe you filed this lawsuit against Senator John Cooper is just to say, hey, listen, like I want to be left alone.
That's
if you accomplish anything, I mean, if you win, great, but even if you lose, maybe you'll be left alone.
I don't know. With John, he holds grudges against everybody. So, he just needs to let it go, and hopefully he'll leave me alone. We'll see.
Yeah.
But moving forward, if the pattern continues, we can add to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We've got the lawsuit. If he continues after that, then he'll have to get somebody else to do it for him, which he's good at that.
We're talking with businessman Chad Neal. He's the owner of Tiger Corrections. And you do business not with the state, but you do business with
the counties.
The counties.
Just with counties. That's right. No state business.
Yeah. And so he's filed a lawsuit against Senator John Cooper for essentially what I can tell is harassment. Is essentially what you're saying.
That's true.
And I mean, can you talk a little bit about the because in one of those letters I read with Cooper, he talked about some Christmas party. It seems he can't get over a Christmas party.
He just can't, and I don't understand it.
Isn't it so petty?
It is. It's just really petty.
There was a Christmas party, and he didn't like. It was at your house, and he didn't like that it was at your house.
It was the first Christmas party that we were having right after the election. Okay, and I don't know if he viewed this as his coming out party because we had. The state chairman was going to be there. Some other elected officials from around the state were going to be there.
Can I make a disclosure real quick?
Sure.
In that race, I was strongly supportive of Cooper because I believed him. I
understand.
I believe. I just want everyone to know this.
Yeah.
Right? I was wrong about that. Like, John Cooper was not who he campaigned to be.
No, he wasn't.
And I just want to point that out.
And I already knew that, and that's why I ran. And I knew that my chances of winning were slim to none, and that's why I got abused for spending all the money I did. But that's the only option I had in such a short period of time because he'd already ran for state office, he'd already ran for the House, and then he'd been going door to door for 6 months. So to overcome that in a special election was just almost.
Yeah,
would have been phenomenal.
But anyway, I'm sorry. So back to the party. So there's a party, and for the Craighead County Republicans, it's your house, and he got upset.
And so, if you've ever ran for office before, you don't even have to run for office to know this, that our wives are our biggest offenders. And my wife was just so upset with him and his wife, just the flyers that he'd put out, the comments that he'd constantly made. She knew me, and she knew that they were not true, and she was physically ill about them coming to our house. And didn't want them there, and I kept putting it off. I put it off for weeks because I knew that if I'd said anything to John early about it, he'd have tried to split the committee and have another party somewhere, and I didn't want that to happen. Yeah. So I intentionally waited till the last day, like at noon, and the party was that night. And I called him, and I said, John, this is Chad Neal. He's like, yeah, Chad, how's it going? I said, great. I said, listen, I said, we need to discuss this party. I said, I think in light of the heated battle that we had here and in light of some things that were said, I said, it might not be a good idea if you come to the party tonight. And he said, well, do you have a problem with it? And I said, no, I do not. I said, but if you come into my house, my wife is liable to beat you up with a baseball bat. Yeah. And I laughed because it was a joke.
Exactly.
It was a joke. Yeah. And he laughed and said, well, we don't want that, do we? And I said, absolutely not. And he said, well, I understand. And he said, you take care. And that was that. Well, 3 seconds later, I'm getting a call from Curtis Coleman, who, at the time was running for governor. Yeah, he was coming. And so first call he made was to Curtis crying. And he said, hey, what's going on? I said, well, Curtis, I told you the guy was about the situation. And I think it was just, I told him my wife was just physically ill about him being at my house. She didn't want him here. And I had to do what I had to do. It wasn't anything personal. It really wasn't.
Yeah. And things are still too hot. Yep. They're just too hot at the moment.
Yep. And so he's like, hey, I understand. And, I think John just viewed it as his coming out party at the prom or something. I don't know, his coronation, something like that, and would never. And now it's to the point that anytime he writes anything about it or says anything about it, we were going to take him out back and string him up and shoot him. Right. He feels physically threatened now.
Yeah, like it was a legitimate threat. Well, it was really just like
it was just an off the cuff, just a joke.
If you don't mind, it'd be hard. It's going to be hard on my wife.
That's right. And that's all it was. And I've had him at my house since then. I've acknowledged him, had him lead the group in prayer, and still he just can't get over it.
Yeah. Well, it's
just you shouldn't be in that kind of position and be that vindictive. Yeah. You just shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, and at this point, from your standpoint, I'm summarizing what you correct me if I'm wrong. You think that he's abusing the power of his office to now harass a private citizen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
And that's why this lawsuit's happening.
That's right.
Well, keep us posted. We'll be following it. I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak the truth and get out there, because something tells me, I don't know if there's other media outlets that are going to do the same.
Yeah.
It's just
who knows?
Just a thought. Yeah. But anyway, Chad, it's great to have you back on,
too.
Sir. And
appreciate what you do and keeping everybody informed.
We'll keep trying. I appreciate you coming on the show.
All right, thanks.
Chad Neal, everybody. We're going to take a break, going to reset here, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, Contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Sales tax burden is one of the very highest in America. That's a real burden on taxpayers, and that is just something where we have to control government growth, I think, to keep whatever tax we choose, keep it in a competitive range. And I think that's really the secret of the 9 states that go without personal income taxes, because you would think that they would have extremely high sales taxes across the board, and some of them do, but on average, those states without income taxes spend about $1,000 less per person than the states with income taxes. So the secret, I think, to their success is they keep more of a limited government framework. New York and Florida, 2 perfect examples to discuss here. They're roughly the exact same size in population, yet Florida spends half as much in its annual budget than New York spends. That's the secret for why Florida can afford to go without a personal income tax and why New York is stuck with the highest income taxes in America.
Wow. Yeah, and I see here, you referenced Arkansas sales tax burden in your report, 47.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. 1 second. Let me move my chair over here. How did that go further? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm off my mark. I'm off the mark. We got new digs, sort of. Not just kind of rearranged a little bit. Telephone number 870-275-979. I want to once again thank Chad Neal for coming by the studio, sharing a little bit about this lawsuit against Senator Cooper. I find it interesting because I really think it comes down to that you have actual conservatives in the Craighead County Republican Committee. I think that's what it comes down to, and I think that's why Senator Cooper, allegedly has done these things. Of course, I mean, he sent the letters. There's nothing alleged about that. That actually happened. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Folks, we're broadcasting over at facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News, as well as the YouTube channel. Do us a favor, go to the YouTube channel if you don't mind, and click the subscribe button, and then click the little bell to receive notifications. That would really help us going forward. So, can we go to this Hill report from back in 2018, and let's click on Chuck Schumer. What did Chuck Schumer have to say a year ago? What did Chuck Schumer have to say a year ago? Do you see this tweet, Joe? That the video here, the second one. I can't see anything. So, yes, not that one. The one right below it. That one right there with Chuck Schumer. Let's listen to what Chuck Schumer said a year ago. Listen to this.
I go through these details because it's important to understand that yesterday's events could only have been the result of a rigorous legal process with checks every step of the way and with a very high burden of proof. And yet, last night, President Trump said the FBI raid was a disgrace, part of a witch hunt, an attack on our country, and mentioned that many people have encouraged him to fire Mr. Mueller. We'll see what happens, he concluded. Let's break this down. The president suggests that the latest events are part of a partisan conspiracy against him. I'd remind the president that the source of the referral, Special Counsel Mueller, is a lifelong Republican. The Deputy Attorney General who signed off on the referral, Rod Rosenstein, is a Republican appointed by President Trump.
He'll now
the
use
Attorney
this
General,
against the
Jeff
Mueller
Sessions,
report.
A Republican appointed by President Trump. And the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District in New York, which sought a search warrant based on that information, is a Republican. appointed by President Trump. The agents in New York who carried out the seizure are under direction of Christopher Wray, a Republican.
All right, that's Chuck Schumer. Now, he's doing that in defense of the legitimacy of Mueller, right? And now I just have this, now that William Barr is going to hold a press conference, according to reports, it's at 9:30. It doesn't say Eastern or not. If it's 9:30 Eastern, that'd be in 30 minutes. William Barr is going to hold a press conference going over the Mueller report he's releasing today. Rod Rosenstein going to be right next to him. And let's go ahead and hit up this headline from September 21st of 2018. Headline, firing Rosenstein would cross a red line drawn by Democrats and resistance groups defending the rule of law. Better not fire Rod Rosenstein. Remember all this. You better not fire Rod Rosenstein. And now Rod Rosenstein is going to be standing next to Attorney General William Barr as they go over the findings of Robert Mueller. It's Mueller time, right? Somebody on Facebook, it's Mueller time, but it's also now time to pay the Barr tab. Some of these are just a little cheesy. But here's the thing. The media is in a fight right now, and the Democrats are in a fight because they don't think William Barr should be able to have a press conference before the Mueller report is released. The media wants the media doesn't want to cover what Barr has to say because they already know what he has to say. He wrote a 4-page memo. They don't want to hear any more of that. They don't want to be forced to cover that. The media wants to get the page. They want to skim through it. They want to get a digital copy of it, Control F, and just search for keywords. Obstruction. And then let's find all the obstruction references anytime it mentions obstruction, and then let's point out that William Barr risked his entire career, and let's attempt to say that he lied in his little summary that he did of the report. That he lied. He was that William Barr was so stupid that he went ahead and lied for the president, knowing full well that eventually the full report would come out and he would be exposed. They're going to cherry pick this, and I want to tell you one more time. I said this in the first hour. You can't believe anything the media, mainstream media, reports on this, and you shouldn't. At least you should not believe anything that they report on this because they have lied to you for the last 18 months or longer. That Donald Trump is really a KGB agent. I mean, they haven't come out and said that, but you know that's the gist. They've lied to you. They've attempted to ensnare the president in obstruction. The only real Russian collusion was Hillary and the Democrats colluding with a former British spy, Christopher Steele. We really need to hope that it's a former British spy, because if he was a current British spy, that would be really, really awkward, wouldn't it? Are you ever really a former spy of any country? Like if you're in the espionage business and if you're if you spy for the U.S. government or you spy for the British government, are you ever really a former spy? Just a question. Honest question. I think you know the answer to it. Telephone number 870-275-9799. I mean, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Andrew McCabe. Rod Rosenstein also, I mean, according to the New York Times, he wanted to wear a wire. They discussed it. But I think Rod Rosenstein is kind of like, at this point, he's like, yeah, I can kind of see where this ship is going. And, yeah, I'm happy to stand next to William Barr. Yeah, Rod Rosenstein is now defending William Barr, by the way. I forgot to point that important piece of information out. Rod Rosenstein is now defending the integrity of the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr. This press conference might be huge. It might be a nothing burger, but it also might be huge. Be listening for it. You might want to go watch the press conference of William Barr for yourself when you get to your desk. You don't want to depend on the mainstream media to tell you what William Barr said. You need to go listen to what William Barr said himself. And then, instead of waiting on the media to tell you what the 400-page report said, maybe you can trust some sources, but maybe go get the report. It'll be available at some point, and then you can read the redacted. The Washington Post reports lightly redacted. Folks, Arkansas, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Thank you so much for listening. We can't do this without your support. Visit us on patreon.com/CNR.